Matt Floyd, Policy Advisory Committee Co-Chair with the Tampa Bay Chamber. I want to thank and welcome the viewers tuning in to our 2023 candidate interview series for the City of Tampa City Council elections. The Chamber focuses on policy, not politics. And while we do not endorse, we want to make sure our members and the business community are informed on where candidates stand on business issues. We're excited to have Nicole Payne running for City Council District 6 with us today. Thank you for joining us, Nicole.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so we are just under 60 days from the election day. Now that we are in the final stretch, can you give us a brief 30 seconds or less update on your campaign and what message you would like to deliver to the voters?
All right, thank you there. Good morning. So the campaign got off to a start in just about a week ago, and we had a good, warm reception on our campaign kickoff, attended by lots of friends and some family members, filled with encouragement and asking me to take their voices and their concerns to the City Council. I've talked to many of them about economic development and housing affordability. And those two are my major platforms, things that I believe in, and they do go hand in hand. The more we developed, the less likely we are to have cheap rents, and we need to make sure that we have a workforce that can afford the area that they work in and live in. And so I'm excited to join in the race and learn all of the initiatives that the council will have put before them and the issues that we take to the mayor.
Great. Nicole, so what's the role of the City Council? How do you see that role evolving over the duration of your term should you be elected?
Well, I believe, one, that the role of the City Council is to provide checks and balances on our local government to make sure that there's full transparency. And so, the council will bring forth some amendments and approve certain plans and budgets for the mayor to discuss. And we need to make sure that our council represents the voice of the people and not the voice of one. And so as a city council member, I would want to make sure that that's what's taking place, that we have full, diverse thoughts, ideas, opinions, and making sure that we're heard and that we press forward. And wherever there are blockages, wherever there's an impasse, that we keep on pressing forward to make sure that we bring our diverse backgrounds with more creativity to solving our pressing issues for the city.
Mm-hmm. Great. So now moving on to workforce housing. So what zoning or policy changes would you support to address the growing workforce housing needs in Tampa?
Well, what greatly concerns me is that whenever you speak to any financial guru, they'll tell you that your housing costs should be no more than about 30% of your wages. And that is increasingly getting harder and harder to do in the city of Tampa. When you're looking around and you see that rents are skyrocketing, because a lot of people are flocking to the Tampa area. And, it's great that people want to be a part of our city, but it's becoming more and more unaffordable. Florida, by and large, has not kept up with the national averages on wages. And so therein lies a big problem. We're bringing development to Tampa City, which again, it's great, but it's not great for everyone because not everyone's going to be able to afford it. So, my biggest concern is housing affordability. And so the council have brought forth an amendment for rent stabilization, which was overwhelmingly, voted for by the citizens of Tampa, and it was vetoed by the mayor. Whenever we bring up topics like that, it's always a concern about the state legislator. It's not allowed according to the state. And when it comes to rent control, the state is not in favor of that, and so it was looked at as rent stabilization. We have to be smart about what we do for our citizens. So the we need to provide fair and balanced solutions to the housing issues in Tampa. And so Tampa Bay's housing market is reported as some of the hottest, but this is hot for some and it's a crisis for others. And so while we arguably are amid a housing crisis, we have to make sure that we address the stabilization. If you don't stabilize the affordability of housing, you're going to destabilize the city. You're going to force the everyday working people out into the street. And then it becomes everybody's problem if we don't solve it today. So the purpose of these types of laws are to keep rent reasonable and also to ensure that tenants are not subjected to unexpected large increases. And that could, again, it can destabilize their financial security. So when your residents are unstable, your city becomes unstable down the line. So additionally, unlike with actual rent control, the legislation doesn't set a hard maximum on how much a landlord could charge. In some cases, the limit is tied to economic markers like inflation, which everyone is pretty much aware of what's going on now with inflation. So in others, it's a specific percentage or other metric outlined in law. And so this keeps coming up and it keeps getting shot down. And so I'd like to be able to bring up other angles, maybe look at this through a different lens, come up with alternate solutions. But we have to do something. It's not something we can afford to say, oh, well, our state law doesn't allow it. No, we can't afford it. It's somebody else's problem and just kick it down the line. We do have to address that with urgency.
Let's move on to the budget. So approving the city's budget is one of the city council's biggest responsibilities. Some state budget economic experts anticipate a slowdown during your term. How should the city prioritize spending?
Well, I have little information about what's in the budget, being an outsider. So I would need to have more information about that. But when it comes to budgets, there's a lot of money out there. There's a lot of government programs, there's grants, and so there's always a concern of how that money is being utilized. Are all the resources being used wisely? Who's at the table making these decisions is a concern. We want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to participate in the development of the city and how those resources are being spent, how our tax dollars are being spent. When we are issued grants and opportunities, we want to make sure that they're being spent wisely. And so I'd like the opportunity to investigate it a little bit more and collaborate with my colleagues on what has been the pitfalls, what has been some successes, and even look to other cities, other larger cities, and how budget constraints are handled and how they're managed going forward.
Okay, thank you. Let's talk home rule. Local governments across the state have been critical of the legislature in recent years. Do you agree that preemption has become a problem in Tallahassee? And if yes, how would you work to establish a productive relationship with our legislative delegation?
Yeah, so it's about the voices. It's about making sure that all of Floridians are represented in Tallahassee. Closed circles can give us tunnel vision and give us the belief that our voices are not important because we're not at the table. And so again, that goes back to transparency. It goes back to diversity in the makeup of our government, but also inclusion. Diversity without inclusion is meaningless. And so we want to make sure that the Tallahassee government knows that everyone has to be included in creating legislative agendas, and it's still more research and more conversation needs to be had about that particular topic. So I'd like the opportunity to research that more.
Okay, great, thank you. Economic development. Utilization of public-private partnerships continue to be an asset for local governments across the country. What opportunities for P3s do you see for the city of Tampa?
Well, the city's leadership needs to make it clear that fair and sustainable economic development is a priority. And as a member of City Council, I will propose and work to pass resolutions that are adopting strategies with clear communication, transparency, and cooperation. Create and foster partnerships with key stakeholders, workforce investment boards, and local colleges and universities. And so many of the things that have gone on thus far they've been stalled, and that's because of a lack of desire to really include all the voices.
Okay, so let's talk transportation. So uncertainty persists with the already collected all for transportation dollars. As you may know, the fate of those dollars rests in the hands of the Florida legislature. Assuming Hillsborough is able to secure the funds from the legislature this session, what are the most important transportation investments that you would like to see?
Well, I guess many residents have a stigma that's attached to mass transportation as the mode of choice. Basically, many people look at it as a mode of transportation for the poor. And so removing the stigma through strategic marketing initiatives and clear and practical solutions that includes environmental proponents attached is a beginning to opening up the conversation. There's a need for a bigger budget, one, to enact basically such a critical mission. However, we can show a need and a collective benefit. Transportation can become a front runner in a solution-oriented council. As Tampa grows, we need greener solutions for transportation, and we must not stop finding solutions. It's basically, you see that, whatever solution, there's a problem with it. So we have to stop doing that. As the city grows, you're going to see that there are more cars on the road, which causes more congestion, more accidents. And so transportation has to be included in kind of like a three-prong solution: economic development, housing, and transportation.
Okay, thank you. So Nicole, we've touched on several important policies. Before we wrap up, is there a priority that you have that we did not discuss, or something that you would like to reemphasize?
Yeah, I'd like to see more focus on mental health as a first aid. And so we need to ensure that, one, our first responders are well trained to identify and humanely assist citizens that are developing or experiencing a mental health crisis, and then partner with churches and civic organizations to deliver comprehensive continuing education to our city's frontline public service officers. Not only do citizens suffer from mental health issues from all different kinds of traumas that they've experienced past or presently, but also our public servants do also experience mental health. And when we don't address that mental health, we bring it to our jobs and we interact with other folks, and we make partnerships very difficult. So I would like to see more emphasis on mental health as a first aid.
Okay, thank you. So where can voters go to learn more about your campaign and your position on issues that are most important to them?
Well, voters can go to my website, which is greattampabay.org. and they can learn more about the issues, upcoming events, who I am, and what I plan to do as a city council member.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, Nicole Payne, running for City Council District 6. On behalf of our members and our board of directors, we want to thank you for joining us today and your willingness to serve in an elected office. This concludes our candidate interview.
Thank you.